Welcome to the Welsh Woodman Workshop. Hope you and your families are doing really well in the current situation. So I've been self-isolating down in the workshop for the past few days, which has given me a great opportunity to have a good clear out and organise. So I thought it'd be great to do a workshop tour, as my workshop's never been this clean before. So I've been watching quite a lot of workshop tour videos on YouTube, and there's some amazing sort of storage ideas. So I thought I'd share some of my own storage ideas to try and help you out. So I hope you enjoy. So as you can see, I've converted a one-car garage, so it's an 18-foot by 12-foot garage, and I've managed to cram in all my things into this space. But I feel really lucky that I've got this space, as I used to work out of a garden shed before, and it's taken me a lot of hard work and time to build up a workshop like this. So I thought we'd start the tour at the big green machine, the VB36. Got a lot of questions in the comments about this machine and some of its quirkier features, so I thought it'd be a good opportunity to cover it in today's video as well. So the VB36, or the master bowl turning lathe, is designed to turn larger, heavier pieces, as you can see from this example. So I've actually got a video coming out on my channel really soon, so if you click the subscribe button and the bell icon down below, you'll give you a notification when this is coming out. So we're going to take the bowl off to allow you to see some more of the features of the lathe. The two main factors that make this really good for turning large pieces is it has a large spindle shaft size, and it also runs on something called plain bearings rather than roller bearings, which allows you to take a heavier load and smoothly run the machine. So we'll just take this off and have a quick look at the other parts. So this large casting on the top really helps dampen the vibration, and the fact that it's separate from the base as well makes it a really quiet lathe. It's actually quieter than my smaller lathe in the workshop. So we zoom in on these little reservoirs at the top, so you fill those with oil and they feed the plain bearings along the top. Now it's really unusual. If we have a look at the faceplate, it uses a bayonet style fitting to put your chucks or faceplates onto, and it's really good, especially if you're turning larger pieces. As the machine's slowing down, they don't unthread then compared to those threaded types. Now the control column itself is really nice. The fact that we've got a variable speed pedometer on here, and you've got an option of reverse and slow start as well as fast start. And on the floor we've got a little pedal that you can turn on the machine and switch off the machine, which frees up both of your hands, so it's a nice little safety feature. And we can really ramp this up to a nice high speed with the pedometer there, and we can cut that out whenever we need to with our foot. So a really quirky feature is the tool rest, and we'll have a look at how we take this out. So it uses a wedge system to clamp this together, so as you tighten the handle, wedges form together and it holds a nice tight strong hold there. So I'll just tighten up to show you. So nice and tight, it's not moving anywhere, and the fact that it's so chunky, this iron girder that's coming out, essentially, it can actually take your whole weight. Now the tool rest itself is on something called a Bandsaw adapter, which allows you to position the tool post in any sort of angle you want, which is really convenient when you're rearranging the angle for bowls. And we're just going to come around the side now and have a look at the belts and pulleys before we move on. Right, so it's got a little focus light, which is brilliant because you can move it anywhere you want when you come to turning, and that sort of casts the shadows then on your tool mark, so you can see where you need to do a bit of work. Someone once asked me, do I have to start the lathe like a chainsaw with this little pull thing? But that actually gets to the gears of the lathe, and it works on a 3 horsepower motor with a built-in inverter, so we can run that rather than off 3 phase. It runs off 240 volts. So on my tool wall there, I've got everything to hand I use on a regular basis when I come to turning my bowls. So my bowl gouges, a few scrapers and things like that. The McNaughton Centre Saver system, which I have about 70% luck with most of the time, so I might need to go on a course to get better at that. A little sanding disc down the bottom that can convert the lathe then into a disc sander. And I've got some of my green drying sort of wood. I think a lot of wood turners, especially if you green turn, have the same problem as me, is that you tend to like to leave the wood to acclimate in the workshop for a while, for a couple of weeks before moving it on. So I've got all my tool rests along the workbench there, just at the hand's reach to make everything quick and efficient. I've got my bench planer underneath. As you can see, I don't use it that often. It's really handy though for segmented work to get everything all the same width before gluing them up. And lots of wood storage underneath. I'm a bit of a wood hoarder, I think, with most woodworkers. And at the top then we've got a shelf for all my portable power tools I use on a regular basis, just to hand then to some of my routers for my granddad and things like that around the shop. A little bench grinder close to the lathe so we can just sharpen tools and hone them really quickly. I like to have my tools so you can, especially things with different sizes, you can take off the wall and just put back on into place, and you can carry that around the workshop wherever you need. Moving on then to down the bottom, so this big large thing I've created, this is a boring bar. Frank Sudol was a Canadian wood turner, he's unfortunately passed away now, but I've used his design. I think David Marks in America uses the same sort of system for hollowing out these big large hollow forms and vessels, so we're going to be seeing this hopefully on the channel in future videos. So this is my pillar drill sort of station, or drill press as they say in the States. It's an Aldi brand, so Work Zone. It's done me really well. I've had it for 4 years, and for smaller projects it's come in real handy. It does struggle with larger Forstner bits, even on the higher gear ratio, so that's something I maybe would upgrade in a few years time, but it's good enough for now, especially for my pen turning and drilling out the blanks. If we move over to the drill cabinet, it's one of the first things I made when I came to my new shop. It works on a French cleat system, so all of these slots can come out and rearrange if I ever did want to rearrange them in the future. But what I really like about it is I've come up with a drill gauge jig at the front, so if you've got a dowel or anything like a screw, you can hold up to the gauge and really quickly find the right size drill bit you need for the job. And I've also got a hole gauge on the side there that I can take around the shop for me, so I know exactly what size drill bit to get. On the inside of the cabinet now, I've got some of the drill bits I don't use on a regular basis, so some Forstner bits, some glass drilling bits, hole saws. These are quite handy. I use those around the house, so you can just grab those and take the whole pack of drills with you. And I've got some PVC pipe I've utilised at the bottom with some drill refills, so if any drills did snap, unfortunately, you could refill them quite easily, and it's got a little latch there to hold it into place. So I've got some Stanley clamps, so I really like these quick clamps. We had some in work and I was quite impressed with them, so I used my birthday Amazon vouchers to get some. There's a little slot there on the top. Now in a small shop you have to be quite creative about the sort of wall space you've got. So I've got these little book style storage. I've got my bench chisels, my tri-square carving chisels, some of my saws then in on this, and some more of my carving gouges there at the back. But that really utilises and maximises the space then without really taking up lots of room in the shop. So I've got a German style workbench, and this is the heart of my sort of hand tool work, and it's got a little record antique vice there fitted at the front and a side vice there, which is really handy. And I've got these little spring bench dogs I can put in to the side there, and it allows me to hold boards when I do my flat work then. So I've got a little carving project on the go. So a traditional Welsh love spoon. There's going to be a video on that coming up on my channel in a good few months time. Got some storage down underneath with some drawers, so I've got some more of my archery stuff there, some sort of whetstones then for sharpening my my bench chisels, and I keep my welder there in the other half. So the tool board itself, I like to have everything within arm's reach, and I've sort of organised this into the tools I use the most being at arm's level. So I've got a charging station then for my drills, my sort of DeWalt tools. I tend to like DeWalt as a brand for woodworking. I had really good luck with them in the past, so I've stuck with them. And on this sort of side I like traditional sort of tools as well, so I've got some of my spoke shaves and things like that, and a little rack for my boat building projects, and some sort of antique planes I've restored there at the top, and some pallet wood holders and more coffin smoothers there at the top. I've also got a little space for my glues and a clamp rack there, and we've got what I like to call a hardware store full of all the screws, nails and everything you could imagine in these little tray bins there. There, my chainsaw mill down the bottom. Got an ancient sort of disc and belt sander there at the top. It's really handy for some of my smaller projects like my birds, if you've seen that on my channel. And the miter saw station. So I've tried to, the best I can, put some dust extraction onto this. So I've got a dust extractor I got off eBay as a job lot with the rest of my dust extractors. and the compound miter saw does kick out quite a lot of dust. This is an Evolution Rage 3S, so it's designed to cut wood, metal and plastic, so it's been really useful for cutting the PVC pipes we'll have a closer look at later on. But I've had this for about 3 years and it's done me well so far. It did take quite a lot of time fiddling with it to get it cutting accurately. But underneath then, I've utilised some of the space, as you can see, with the dust extractor and some of the more wood storage for my wood turning blanks. So I like to do some flat work now and again, and a table saw is really sort of handy for that. But a cabinet maker's table saw would pretty much take up the entire workshop with an out-feed table as well. So I've got this little Evolution collapsible saw, and it's quite nice that really quickly you can put up the saw and get to work and fold it down, which takes seconds really, and you can put it out the way. So it's got a nice strong fence on it, and the great thing about this saw as well is the fact that if you did want to sort of saw larger pieces, we can extend the table out, and you've got enough room then for larger boards. Another great feature of the saw is you've got a sliding table on it. So you can connect a miter station and you can do sliding cuts, which is really handy for segmented work for turning for me. Another great feature if you're especially if you're a woodworker with the fine dust that you can create from the sanding, is these box air filtration type systems. So this is a Record Power AC400. It comes with a little hand remote as well, so you can turn on, and you've got different speed options there. It's quite nice because it blows a good breeze, and you can time this as well, so up to 4 hours. So you can leave it run after you've left the shop for the evening. It can filter out the fine dust. On this side of the dust extractor has the filter, and you'd be amazed when you blow out the filter how much dust this is stopping from going into your lungs. So it's well worth having in the workshop. I lost count the amount of times I've banged my head on this because the ceiling's quite low in this workshop. A really useful thing to have. So a great addition to the workshop, especially in the winter time, is this wood burning stove. So I got this professionally installed by a heat-ass engineer, which is a requirement here in the UK, about 2 years ago. Made the hearth, got some Welsh slate on the top. Me and my dad put that together, and this has been such a great addition to the workshop as it keeps it nice and toasty in the winter. And I've got some little stove fans then that pump the hot air, circulate it around the workshop, so it makes it a nice, pleasant place to come and visit. You can also get rid of all those little bowls that go wrong and frustrate you. At least they keep you warm, and all your scrap wood then can go on the fire, so you've essentially got free fuel to keep the place warm. So it's got a twin flue at the top, so it's really important, so it protects it from igniting in a wood shop. I've got a fire bucket with some sand down the bottom, and also a fire extinguisher on the wall as well, which is really important just in case any accidents do happen. I've got a few axes down the bottom that I've forged, and I use these as my splitting axes for making some kindling. And at the top on the wall then, I've got some of these felling axes that I've been restoring. So these are antiques from the 1800s, so really happy to have these and make really good handy use for splitting firewood for the winter. On the wall then I've got a little kindling box, so for some fire starters and things like that to help start off the fire, keeps it off the floor and keeps the damp out as well. So we're at my wood storage area, or the wall of wood, so this is where I keep my nicest sort of tropical hardwoods and native hardwoods that have been seasoned in the UK. So I've got some just basic storage with the shelves then, some pen blanks and some sort of hairpin blanks there at the top I've cut to length. I've got tropical hardwood spindle blanks there that are really easy to grab, get onto the lathe really quickly. I've got a designated shelf for my chainsaw and some of my chainsaw wedges there, sharpening equipment and oil, so I use a still, they're really good for processing bowl blanks. Got some more strips of wood there for more smaller boxes and things like that. As I tend to be a bit of a wood hoarder, this has been really good for me, having a wood bin to burn wood that, even those tiny little offcuts, I think are going to be handy, that often they aren't. So it allows me to keep warm instead by having a bin like this. And disaster projects tend to, as you can see, go in the bin, and onto the fire then. So I've got some storage drawers that are really handy for sort of like bulk items you want to keep out the way. So I've got all my sandpaper and different bits and bobs, dust masks and rags for polishing. So it really keeps them nice and neatly out the way so the sawdust and dust doesn't get onto them. And I've labelled all the drawers just to remind me what's in each drawer. I've got a picture of my my granddad at the top. Unfortunately he's passed away now, but he was the guy that really started me off and got that passion into woodworking. I remember working with him in his little cellar workshop in the Welsh Valleys as long as I can remember. I've got some knife blanks there at the top I haven't finished off, so I forged these, and some axe heads as well I need to get handles onto. Moving on to the sharpening station then. So I've got a 6-inch bench grinder, it's by Clark. I've got a CBN wheel on there, so carbon boron nitrate helps cut through the material better than these aluminium oxide wheels. And I've got a little sort of grinding jig and welded up and made myself. I've got a video on my channel on that if you're interested, and some sharpening tips as well to help you out. And it's on a fireproof cabinet, so all my flammable finishes I put in the bottom of the cabinet, and the finishes I use on a daily basis then are quick to grab on the top. If we have a look at the top shelf then, I've got some different sharpening jigs I can change over quickly. And we can see on the top then, we've got some more of the finishes I use on a daily basis, quick to hand, so I can grab. So I'll move over to the lathe next. So I've got my spindle working lathe now. It's a Pullwood Euro 1500. Absolutely love this machine. It's an old machine, British made, but it's done me really well. It's got a variable speed motor, and the really interesting thing about this machine is that it hasn't got any gears or pulleys as such. It's all off the motor, and it's got a variable speed direct driver. So it's a 3-phase motor, has an inverter underneath to convert it to 240, and this is really good. I do a lot of my production work on this machine. I've got a production run of Roman catapulta bolts for a Roman reenactment group on at the moment. For tool storage then, I've got everything to hand that I need, so all my different centres, my driving spurs, Jacob's chucks, and I've got my pen turning stuff all on a French cleat, so it's easy to take down and move around the shop if I wanted to use my smaller lathe as well to turn that on. On the wall then, I've got really utilised this PVC, and that was one of the reasons I got the compound miter saw, so you could cut through plastic, wood and metal. It's essentially just a 45-degree cut at the top, straight cut at the bottom, and 2 wood screws holding this into place, and I find they're ideal for holding wood turning tools. So you can see I've got a vast variety of tools that I only really use 6 on a regular basis, but the rest are quite handy. They've been given to me and I've collected over the years as well. So I've got a few storage for my spare chucks jaws, and these are really good in the fact that I've put these little gauges on there, so you can, if you forget to measure the size of your jaws, you can just set your outside calipers on those. It makes it really easy then for turning down a tenon to hold on to. The bandsaw then, so it's a SIP 14-inch heavy duty wood cutting bandsaw. It's been really good for me in cutting out those larger bowl blanks. I use a 1/4 of an inch blade with 3 TPI, 3 teeth per inch, which makes it quite a coarse blade for cutting through green wood. It's good. And behind the bandsaw I've got a dust extractor, so a SIP dust extractor to suck up all the dust that drops into the bottom of this. The other extractor I have in my shop is a Camvac, so I've got 2 blast gates on this, so I can have suction to the lathe, or I can have suction to little hose there, which is really handy for moving around the shop, then for sucking up smaller sort of wood shavings. So behind the bandsaw I've got these little production boxes, I call them. So when I do some production turning, I can drop all the parts into the box, especially if they've got several components to them. And this is quite a little handy feature, my little sanding caddy. So I've got all the rolls of sandpaper and some abranet in there. My used paper I tend to put into that section and use it until it dies basically. And on the wall there I've got a kitchen roll holder, I need to replace at the moment, and some storage for my wood chucks and screw chucks and things, and some spare bandsaw blades behind the blade, so when I want to do my rip cutting or smaller detailed work I can change them over quite easily. See some more storage down the bottom there for some of my other tools, but it's just nice having a place that I can put them back into Otherwise I tend to be a messy worker and leave them all the way around the shop. As I've got 2 little visors I use, so it's a Honeywell's sort of face visor. You can see sanding seal looks a bit like Braille at the moment. I've got a power respirator, so a JSP Power Active IP, brilliant, definitely recommend these if anyone's interested in power respirators. Really helpful for your lungs and your eyes. This is a German side axe, so it's a bit of an antique, 1800s. Restoring shortly I will be, so I want to put a new handle on that and do a little bit of work on the axe head itself. But this is for hewing the side of logs, so you notice that one side of the axe is straight, one's on a little bit of a curve, but it's quite a cool feature to have in the shop. And the very last thing before we close is the sign. So this is actually a part of my logo. If you notice the dragon with a 2-man saw then on the top, a friend of mine and me made this together, but it's quite a cool little antique piece to have in the shop as well. Thank you so much for watching tonight's video. Hope it's been useful for you in some ways and answered a few of your questions. If you have enjoyed tonight's video, please support me in subscribing to my channel by clicking the link below, as that's really going to allow me then to get more videos like this your way. So I hope to see you on future videos. Keep safe. Diolch yn fawr. Nos da.